The rain had been falling since morning. Mira pulled her hood tighter as she trudged through the winding streets of old Velara. The city was ancient, its cobbled alleys twisting like forgotten veins through stone and ivy. Rain pooled in dips along the narrow roads, glimmering under flickering lamplight. Her boots squelched with every step, soaked through hours ago, but she kept walking. She needed the motion. She needed the distraction. Her world had unraveled in a matter of days. The job she'd fought so hard to earn at the prestigious Royal Archive of Velara had slipped through her fingers due to abrupt restructuring. Apartment she had barely afforded was now out of reach. And perhaps most painful of all, the letter from home still burned in her pocket, her sister's words polite but distant, confirming what Mira already knew: there was no place waiting for her back home. The city was alive even in the rain. Towering spires etched with glowing glyphs pierced the mist above her. Small enchanted lanterns floated lazily through narrow streets, casting ripples of soft light on wet stone. The air smelled of damp stone, baking bread from distant bakeries, and faint traces of wild lavender that grew along the canals. Gondolas drifted quietly through the waterways, their oars slicing the black water like thin knives. Above her, a sleek merchant airship slid past, its silent engines humming like distant thunder. Mira loved this city once. When she first arrived, it had been magical, a place where scholars studied ancient spells alongside artisans crafting enchanted jewelry and botanists growing luminous flowers that bloomed under moonlight. But now the enchantment felt distant. Now the city loomed, casting long shadows. She paused beneath a crooked awning, watching the rain thicken into sheets. The market stalls had long since packed up, leaving only the occasional shadowed figure. Darting through the wet gloom, her stomach growled softly. She hadn't eaten since morning. The world seemed intent on swallowing her whole. The rejection from the Royal Archive stung deeper than she cared to admit. She had dedicated years of study, sacrificing friendships and comforts for a chance at belonging in that prestigious institution. Now she was adrift, untethered from the life she had so carefully built. That's when she noticed it. Tucked between two tall stone buildings, where she was certain only a blank wall had been minutes before, stood a narrow door. Above it hung a lantern that glowed silver, its soft light unwavering against the rain. A sign dangled beneath: the Silver Lantern Cafe. Mira blinked. She didn't remember seeing it before. And yet, as if drawn by some invisible current, her feet carried her to the door. The brass handle was warm under her fingertips. The bell above the door chimed softly as she stepped inside. Warmth greeted her like an old friend. The air smelled of honey, cardamom, and faintly of lavender. Golden lanterns hung from wooden beams, casting a soft glow over the small, cozy space. A fireplace crackled at one end, its flames reflecting off polished oak tables. Delicate glass orbs hovered gently near the ceiling beams, pulsing softly with dim light as though breathing. Strange artifacts adorned the shelves: glass bottles filled with swirling mist, tiny wooden clocks that ticked backward, pressed flowers floating in thin crystal panes. A plump black cat slept curled on a velvet pillow by the hearth. Behind the counter stood a young man with silver hair that gleamed like moonlight. His eyes, a curious shade between gray and storm blue, lifted to meet hers. He smiled, genuine, warm, unhurried. "Rough night?" he asked, voice gentle. Mira managed a faint smile. You could say that. Without prompting, he poured tea into a delicate ceramic cup. The steam curled like soft ribbons into the air, "First cup's free," he said, sliding it toward her. Silver lantern tradition. She took the seat closest to the fireplace and wrapped her cold hands around the warm cup. The tea was fragrant, floral, with a hint of spice. The warmth seeped into her fingers, then her chest. The silence was comfortable, broken only by the crackle of fire and the steady patter of rain against the windows. She let herself scan the cafe more fully. The gentle hum of whispered conversations and the soft clinking of cups against saucers blended into a soothing melody. It was a place that felt untouched by time. After a long stretch of quiet, Mira spoke. "I've lived in this city for 3 years. I don't recall seeing this place before." He glanced up with a small knowing smile. "Most only find it when they need it." She frowned slightly at his cryptic answer but said nothing. The tea was too soothing to invite more worry. Other patrons slowly trickled in. Miss Caro, an elderly woman with wild gray curls, settled into a corner with a thick, leather-bound novel. Fenwick, a lanky dream diviner, arranged glowing runes. On his table, humming softly, Ember, a fiery young woman with brilliant red hair and a mischievous grin, burst through the door, shaking droplets from her cloak. "Evening, Lucian." Ember called. "Storm's a wild one tonight." "It always is," Lucian replied with a chuckle. Lucian brought Mira a second cup without her requesting it. "Lavender and rose," he said. "For healing. How did you know?" She asked. "You carry a weight in your chest. Wounds aren't always visible." She exhaled softly, eyes stinging unexpectedly. "You're not wrong." Ember plopped into the chair beside Mira, grinning. "New face." "First time?" Mira nodded, her voice softer than intended. "Yes." "Ah, the lantern calls again," Ember said dramatically. "We all stumble in eventually." "Not stumble." Fenwick chimed from across the room, his voice calm and melodic. "Guided. The lantern chooses." Mira chuckled despite herself. "What is this place?" "A sanctuary," Miss Caro said, without looking up from her book. A pause between moments. Lucian polished a glass behind the counter, adding, "Not all who visit are lost. Some are simply in between." Mira listened quietly as the conversations unfolded. The warmth of the cafe wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. The weight of her failure slowly loosened its grip. Fenwick shifted his runes, the soft symbols glowing faintly. "The storm tonight carries restless dreams." "You always say that," Ember teased. "Every storms stir the soul." Fenwick replied with a knowing glance at Mira. "Even those who pretend they aren't searching." Mira lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. Restless dreams. Restless hearts. Lucian placed a small plate of honey cakes before her, on the house. The sweetness melted on her tongue, and for a moment, she allowed herself to simply enjoy the warmth and flavors. As the hours passed, Mira shared bits of her story. Her failed job, her distant family, her uncertain future. The others listened. Without judgment. "You built your life on someone else's foundation," Miss Caro said gently. "Sometimes when that foundation crumbles, it's a chance to build something entirely your own." Ember nodded. "The archive isn't the only place where knowledge matters. You could teach, collect, curate your own histories." "But I have nothing," Mira whispered. "No resources, no connections." Lucian's voice was soft but firm. "You have yourself, you have passion. The rest follows, piece by piece." The rain outside softened to a gentle drizzle. Whisper, the black cat, padded over and leapt gracefully into Mira's lap. She chuckled, stroking its fur. She always finds those who need grounding, Lucian said. Mira sat in peaceful silence, the weight in her chest easing for the first time in days. As the fire crackled, Ember shared a tale of how she found the cafe after losing everything to a failed venture. Fenwick spoke of dreams that guided him here, showing glimpses of futures not yet written. The lantern has a way of mending broken threads, Fenwick said softly, or helping you weave new ones. Ember added with a smile. The hours slipped by unnoticed. Outside, the storm had finally passed, leaving the streets glistening under the lantern lights. Lucian returned with one final cup, its liquid shimmering faintly like liquid pearl. For clarity, he said. That Mira hesitated. Is it truly magic? Lucian's smile was enigmatic. Magic takes many forms. Sometimes it's simply a nudge when you're ready to see. She sipped. The flavors bloomed on her tongue: chamomile, citrus, and something indescribable. As she drank, a vision unfolded in her mind, traveling across small villages, preserving forgotten stories, collecting artifacts with her own hands, teaching curious minds not within grand halls, but in intimate circles. The vision filled her chest with quiet hope. Finally, Mira stood. The others smiled at her knowingly. Will I find this place again? She asked Lucian. When you need it, he replied. She stepped into the quiet streets, the silver lantern's glow fading behind her as though it had never been there. The rain had ceased. The city no longer loomed but shimmered with possibility. For the first time in days, Mira smiled, and as she walked forward, her steps felt lighter than ever before.
If you liked this story and want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe. New stories will be posted weekly.